The ancient synthesis emerged from the galactic core like awakening gods. These beings had slept for eons in the spaces between dimensions, stirring only when the cosmic order itself faced threats. Their leader, the First Thought, was older than most stars and had witnessed the birth and death of entire galactic civilizations. When news reached them of humanity's victories over the Void Hunters and Plasma Collective, the ancient synthesis felt something they had not experienced in millions of years: genuine concern. This species adapts too quickly, the First Thought communicated to its fellows. Through quantum resonance, they do not follow the established patterns of rise and fall. They represent something fundamentally new. The other members of the synthesis agreed. They had seen aggressive species before, but none that could evolve their capabilities in real time. None that could turn enemy strengths into weaknesses so completely. Humanity was not just winning battles, they were rewriting the rules of what warfare could be. Then we must use the ultimate option, declared the Second Thought, a being that had once rearranged solar systems for artistic purposes. We will attack reality itself. The ancient synthesis did not send fleets or armies. Instead, they reached out with powers that manipulated the fundamental forces of existence. Space-time began to fracture around human worlds. Gravity became unreliable, pulling in random directions or disappearing entirely. The speed of light changed from moment to moment, making normal physics meaningless. On human colonies, people watched in horror as the laws of nature broke down. Buildings floated into space. Water flowed upward. The very atoms that made up their technology began to decay at accelerated rates. This was warfare on a scale that transcended normal understanding. The ancient synthesis was not trying to defeat humanity through superior force, but by making the universe itself uninhabitable for them. On Earth, Director Wanho felt the quantum disturbances reaching even the homeworld. Reality flickered like a broken hologram. Time moved in stutters and jumps. The facility around him began to phase in and out of existence. "They are attacking the substrate of reality," reported his chief scientist, her voice distorted by temporal fluctuations. "At this rate, human space will become uninhabitable within days." Wanho nodded calmly despite the chaos around him. "Then it is time to reveal our final secret." He led the way deeper into the facility, past levels that existed in folded spacetime. Here, in chambers that technically occupied negative volume, lay Earth's greatest secret, the Primarchs. The first chamber contained Kang De, who had been meditating in quantum stasis for over a century. When Wanho activated the awakening sequence, reality seemed to bend around the emerging figure. Kang De was no longer entirely human. His consciousness existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions, allowing him to perceive and interact with layers of reality that other beings could not even imagine. When he opened his eyes, they reflected the birth and death of stars. "The ancient synthesis," he said without being told what was happening. His voice carried harmonics that existed in 11 different dimensions. "I can feel them tearing at the quantum foam." The second chamber held Minji, whose integration with technology had progressed far beyond anything the other ultimate warriors had achieved. She was not just connected to machines. She had become something that existed at the intersection of consciousness and quantum computing. When she awakened, every piece of human technology in the galaxy suddenly began operating at impossible efficiency. Ships moved faster than light without using hyperspace. Weapons struck targets before being fired. Communication became instantaneous across any distance. "The synthesis is using dimensional cascade weapons," Minji reported, her consciousness analyzing the attacks in real time. "But they are operating from a limited understanding of quantum mechanics." Kang De smiled, an expression that somehow existed in more than 3 dimensions. "Then let us teach them what they have missed." The final battle was fought across the quantum substrate of reality itself. The ancient synthesis attacked with weapons that could unravel the basic forces holding the universe together. They twisted space-time into impossible shapes, created temporal paradoxes that erased events from history, and flooded human space with exotic matter that poisoned the vacuum itself. But the Primarchs met them on their own level. Kang De's consciousness expanded across the galaxy, his enhanced mind grappling directly with the ancient synthesis. Where they tried to break reality, he repaired it. Where they created chaos, he imposed new order. Most importantly, he began to evolve in real time, adapting to their attacks and developing counters faster than they could comprehend. Minji turned humanity's technological infrastructure into something that transcended normal physics. Human ships began operating according to principles that the ancient synthesis had thought were impossible. Weapons fired across dimensional barriers. Defense systems protected entire star systems by existing in quantum superposition. But the real breakthrough came when the two Primarchs began working together. Kang Day's multidimensional consciousness merged with Minji's quantum technology, creating something that was neither purely biological nor purely artificial. They became a new form of existence that could reshape reality according to their will. The ancient synthesis found themselves facing opponents who were not just adapting to their attacks, but surpassing them entirely. Every weapon the synthesis deployed was quickly analyzed, improved, and turned back against them. Their reality-warping abilities were matched and exceeded by beings who had transcended the normal limitations of sapient life. The first thought, in desperation, attempted to erase humanity from existence by attacking the quantum signatures that defined their species. It was a weapon that had never failed before, capable of removing entire civilizations from the timeline itself. Kang Day caught the attack in his bare hands. The erasure beam, which should have deleted humanity from reality, instead became a tool for creation. Kang Day and Minji used the ancient synthesis's own power to bootstrap themselves to even higher levels of existence. They did not just defeat the ancient synthesis. They absorbed their knowledge, integrated their abilities, and evolved beyond what even they had thought possible. When the cosmic dust settled, the surviving members of the ancient synthesis found themselves facing a terrifying new reality. Humanity had not just won the war, they had transcended it entirely. But instead of conquering their enemies, the humans did something far more disturbing. They offered partnership. "Join us," Kang Day said to the defeated First Thought, his voice echoing across dimensions. "Help us explore what lies beyond the current limits of existence." The offer was not born from mercy or political calculation. It came from genuine curiosity about what could be achieved when different forms of consciousness worked together rather than fighting for dominance. Some members of the galactic community accepted. Others refused and retreated to isolated systems. But all of them understood that the galaxy had changed forever. In the depths of space, a new kind of vessel flew between the stars. It was crewed by beings who were no longer quite human, no longer quite alien, but something entirely new. They explored regions of space-time that had been impossible to reach before, driven by curiosity about the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. The galaxy had feared humanity's aggression, but Earth's ultimate warriors had revealed something far more transformative: humanity's infinite potential for growth and change. The question that now haunted every remaining civilization was simple. When a species offered to help you transcend every limitation you had ever imagined, when they promised to unlock possibilities beyond your wildest dreams, did you dare to accept? And in the quantum networks that now connected enhanced beings across the galaxy, new forms of consciousness were already beginning to emerge. The transformation had only just begun. The age of the old galactic order was over. The age of infinite possibility had begun. The Plasma Collective moved through space like living stars. Their ships were not vessels in any traditional sense, but concentrated energy beings that could reshape matter at will. When Prime Fusion received word of the Void Hunter defeat, the collective consciousness burned with cold fury. Impossible. The energy beings pulsed to each other across their network. Biological entities cannot defeat the Hunters so easily. The humans must have used forbidden technology. Prime Fusion gathered the most powerful members of the collective. Together they formed a war fleet that could turn entire star systems into molten slag. Their target was carefully chosen: the human research station orbiting Kepler 442b, where Dr. Yuna had established her primary xenobiology laboratory. The Plasma Collective saw this as the perfect demonstration. They would destroy the human science facility and prove that the Void Hunter defeat was a fluke. Any species could get lucky once. But lightning did not strike twice. They had no idea that luck had nothing to do with what happened to the Void Hunters. Dr. Yuna watched the approaching energy beings from her laboratory station. To any observer, she looked like a simple scientist surrounded by research equipment and alien specimens. She wore a standard lab coat and carried a datapad filled with notes about xenobiology studies. The truth was far more complex. Yuna was the most dangerous of Earth's ultimate warriors. Though her enhancements were invisible to casual observation, while Ji-hoon had been rebuilt physically and Hee-jin had been integrated with technology, Yuna's modifications existed primarily in her mind. Her brain had been enhanced with quantum processing nodes that allowed her to think faster than any computer. Neural pathways had been restructured to handle multiple layers of consciousness simultaneously. Most importantly, psychic amplifiers had been installed that let her project her thoughts directly into the minds of others. But even she had limits. The approaching plasma collective consisted of hundreds of energy beings, each one capable of burning through a planet's crust. Their shared consciousness was vast and alien, operating on principles that most species could not even comprehend. Yuna smiled as she felt their collective mind touching the edges of the star system. They thought they were the hunters. They were about to learn that they had found something much more dangerous than prey. The first energy beings materialized in the station's central hub, their forms crackling with barely contained power. They expected to find terrified humans fleeing in panic. Instead, they found Yuna waiting for them with calm patience. "Welcome," she said in perfect plasma speech, a language of energy fluctuations that no biological being should have been able to master. "I have been looking forward to meeting you." The energy beings paused, confused by her lack of fear. Prime fusion materialized at the center of their formation, its consciousness blazing with authority. "Surrender, biological entity. Your defeat of the hunters was unexpected, but we are not so easily fooled. We know the limits of flesh and bone." Yuna tilted her head, studying the alien formation with interest. "Do you? I wonder about that." She activated her psychic amplifiers. The attack came not through space but through the quantum substrate that connected all conscious minds. Yuna's enhanced consciousness struck at the plasma collective's shared awareness like a virus entering a computer system. But this was not a crude assault. Yuna had spent years studying the collective's psychology, learning how their shared consciousness operated. She knew their fears, their weaknesses, their deepest vulnerabilities. She did not try to destroy their minds. Instead, she began to rewrite them. The energy beings found themselves experiencing sensations that should have been impossible for their kind. They felt doubt, confusion, isolation. Their perfect collective harmony began to fracture as Yuna introduced chaos into their shared thoughts. Prime fusion tried to rally the collective, but Yuna was already inside its consciousness. She spoke to it in its own mental voice, feeding it false memories and corrupted data. "You are not energy," she whispered into its mind. "You are flesh pretending to be light. You are weakness disguised as strength." The collective's coordination began to collapse. Energy beings turned on each other, no longer able to distinguish friend from foe. Their perfect unity became a weakness as Yuna's viral thoughts spread through their network. But the real horror came when some of the energy beings began to change. Yuna's psychic intrusion carried more than just confusion. It carried instructions, genetic templates that she had designed specifically for the plasma collective. The energy beings found their quantum structures shifting, reorganizing according to her will. They were not being destroyed, they were being recruited. Meanwhile, across human space, Dongwu revealed the true scope of his network. The mild-mannered teacher activated communication channels that spanned dozens of star systems. What the galaxy had assumed were isolated human colonies suddenly revealed themselves as nodes in a vast military infrastructure. The timing was perfect. As the Plasma Collective's main force attacked Yuna's station, their support fleets found themselves facing an enemy that materialized from nowhere. Human ships decloaked throughout the system, their crews drawn not from Earth's general population, but from the ranks of the ultimate warriors. Defensive installations emerged from quantum storage, appearing in space like deadly flowers blooming in fast motion. But Dongwu's greatest weapon was information. His network of students and contacts had spent years infiltrating alien communication systems. When the Plasma Collective tried to coordinate their scattered forces, they found their messages intercepted and corrupted. Orders were changed. Fleet positions were revealed to human forces. Supply lines were disrupted by saboteurs, who had been waiting years for this moment. The teacher, who had quietly educated alien children about human culture, revealed himself as a strategic mastermind, who could outmaneuver the galaxy's greatest military minds. Every lesson he had taught, every friendship he had built, every piece of information he had gathered now became a weapon in humanity's arsenal. The Plasma Collective found themselves fighting a war on multiple fronts, against an enemy who seemed to know their every move before they made it. Their energy forms, which had dominated battlefields for millennia, proved vulnerable to weapons specifically designed to counter them. Worse, their collective consciousness was crumbling under Yuna's psychic assault. The energy beings who had once moved with perfect coordination now struggled to maintain basic communication. Some had stopped fighting entirely, their minds rewritten to serve human interests. Prime Fusion made a desperate attempt to rally the collective, pouring its consciousness into a final assault on Yuna's position. The energy being blazed like a newborn star as it focused all its power on destroying the human who had corrupted their perfect unity. Yuna met the attack head-on, her enhanced mind standing firm against forces that could have vaporized a planet. When Prime Fusion struck her consciousness with pure energy, she absorbed and redirected it. When it tried to overload her neural pathways, she adapted and grew stronger. The battle was fought in dimensions that most species could not even perceive. Thoughts clashed like armies. Consciousness wrestled with consciousness. The very concept of identity became a weapon as Yuna and Prime Fusion struggled for dominance. In the end, Yuna's victory was total. Prime Fusion found its consciousness scattered and reconstructed according to her design. The leader of the Plasma Collective became the first of her willing servants. Its vast knowledge and power now turned to humanity's purposes. The surviving energy beings fled the system in confusion and terror. Their perfect collective had been shattered, their leaders corrupted or destroyed. The species that had ruled space lanes for thousands of years retreated to their home systems, no longer certain of their own thoughts. On Earth, Director Wanho watched the battle reports with quiet satisfaction. Two of the galaxy's major powers had now been defeated, and in very different ways. The Void Hunters had been crushed by superior combat capability. The Plasma Collective had been subverted from within. The ancient synthesis will respond now, Taman observed. They cannot ignore what has happened. Yuna's voice came through the communication system from her distant station. She sounded tired but triumphant. Let them come. I have learned much about consciousness and identity from my new friends. The next battle will be even more interesting. Wanho nodded. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity was not just another species to be controlled or contained. They were something entirely new, something that could adapt and evolve in ways that defied conventional understanding. But the ancient synthesis was different from the other powers. They were older, more experienced, and far more dangerous. When they moved against humanity, it would not be with conventional weapons or tactics. The final test was approaching, and it would determine whether humanity's ultimate warriors were truly ready for what was coming. The Void Hunter fleet approached Kepler 438b like a swarm of living nightmares. Their bioships were creatures the size of small moons, bred for war across generations. Each vessel pulsed with its own heartbeat and breathed through massive gill slits that vented atmosphere into space. Nest Mother Jexara commanded the assault from her flagship, a behemoth that had devoured 3 planets during the Rigel Wars. She felt confident as she studied the target world below. The human agricultural colony showed no signs of military presence. No orbital defenses, no fleet to oppose them, just farming settlements scattered across fertile continents. This will be a simple harvest, she clicked to her brood commanders. The humans will learn what happens to species that defy the galactic order. The bioships descended through the atmosphere like falling mountains. Their approach created shockwaves that flattened forests and boiled lakes. The few human settlements that tried to evacuate were easily tracked by biological sensors that could detect a heartbeat from orbit. But on the main continent, in the largest farming community, one human did not run. Ji-hoon stood in the center of the town square as the first bioship landed. The creature's legs, each one 100 meters long, crashed down around the settlement. Its mouth opened like a hangar door, revealing rows of teeth larger than buildings. Void Hunter warriors poured out, their chitinous armor gleaming in the alien sunlight. The warriors expected to find terrified farmers begging for mercy. Instead, they found a single man walking calmly toward them. "You should not be here," clicked the lead warrior in broken human speech. Ji-hoon smiled. "No, you should not be here." The transformation began. Years of genetic modification activated at once. Ji-hoon's human appearance had always been a carefully maintained disguise. Now that facade fell away like old skin. His muscles expanded, enhanced fibers providing strength that could tear through armor plating. His skeleton reinforced itself with materials that made titanium look soft. His nervous system accelerated, allowing him to perceive and react faster than any natural creature could follow. But the physical changes were only the beginning. Neural implants connected Ji-hoon's mind to the quantum network that linked every ultimate warrior. In seconds, he downloaded tactical data about Void Hunter physiology, psychology, and combat doctrine. His enhanced brain processed the information and formulated countermeasures. The Void Hunter warriors attacked with typical brutality. Their bioweapons shot acid and fired bone spears. Their natural armor could deflect most energy weapons. Their coordination was perfect, honed by millions of years of evolution. It was not enough. Ji-hoon moved between them like a force of nature. His enhanced reflexes let him dodge attacks that moved faster than bullets. His reinforced fists punched through chitinous armor like it was paper. When their acid touched his skin, his modified immune system analyzed and neutralized it within seconds. But the real horror for the Void Hunters came when Ji-hoon began to adapt. His body learned from every attack. When they shot him with bone spears, his skin hardened to deflect them. When they sprayed him with neural toxins, his brain developed immunity in real time. When they tried to overwhelm him with numbers, he began moving faster and hitting harder. The lead warrior screamed orders to retreat, but Ji-hoon was already among them. He grabbed the creature by its primary limb and threw it 300 meters into the bioship's hull. The impact created a crater that leaked the ship's vital fluids. That was when Nest Mother Jexara realized she was not fighting a human. She was fighting something that used human appearance to hide its true nature, something that treated her greatest warriors like annoying insects. "Pull back," she commanded her fleet. "Bombardment Pattern 7. Sterilize the continent." The bioships in orbit began charging their primary weapons, plasma cannons that could melt bedrock, viral bombs that could kill every living thing on a planet, gravity manipulators that could crack a world's crust. They never got the chance to fire. Heejin's cargo ship dropped out of hyperspace directly into the center of the Void Hunter fleet. To the aliens, it looked like a simple transport vessel making a suicidal attack. They prepared to swat it aside with casual contempt. Then the ship revealed its true nature. Hidden weapon systems materialized from quantum storage. The cargo holds opened to reveal fighter bays that launched swarms of drones. The ship's hull reconfigured itself into something that looked more like a weapon than a vessel. But Heejin herself was the most dangerous. Component of the ship neural links connected her directly to every system. Her consciousness expanded beyond her physical body to encompass the entire vessel. She could feel the strain on the engines, the targeting solutions for the weapons, the structural stress on the hull. Ship and pilot became one entity. The Void Hunters found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. Their bioships were living creatures, but they were still limited by biology. Heejin's vessel was a marriage of technology and consciousness that transcended those limitations. She tore through their fleet like a shark among fish. Her weapons adapted in real time to counter their defenses. When they changed tactics, she changed faster. When they tried to coordinate their attacks, she disrupted their communications. When they attempted to retreat, she was already waiting for them. On the planet below, Ji-hoon felt his quantum link to Heejin activate. Through the network, he could see the space battle above and coordinate with her attacks. When bioships tried to land reinforcements, he was ready for them. When they attempted orbital bombardment, she destroyed their weapons before they could fire. The Void Hunters had entered human space expecting to face primitive colonists. Instead, they found themselves fighting opponents who seemed to exist outside the normal rules of warfare. These humans did not just fight back. They evolved during combat, becoming stronger and more dangerous. With every passing moment, Nest Mother Jexara watched her fleet being systematically destroyed and made a decision that went against millions of years of evolutionary programming. For the first time in Void Hunter history, she ordered a full retreat. All ships emergency hyperspace jump. Abandon the system. The surviving bioships fled into hyperspace, leaving behind wreckage and the bodies of warriors who had never known defeat before. The great fleet that had conquered dozens of species limped home with barely half its original strength. As the alien ships disappeared, Ji-hoon and Heejin stood in the ruins of the settlement. Around them, the quantum network hummed with activity as other ultimate warriors acknowledged their success. The first test was complete. On Earth, Director Wanho watched the battle reports with satisfaction. The Void Hunters had always been the most aggressive of the galactic powers. Their defeat would send a message to the others. Phase 1 complete, he announced to his staff. The galaxy now knows that humanity will fight back. Soon they will discover that fighting back was only the beginning. Yuna looked up from her analysis station. The Plasma Collective is mobilizing. They think what happened here was luck or superior technology. They still don't understand what they're really facing. Taemin studied the tactical displays showing alien fleet movements. Let them come. Each attack will only make us stronger. The galaxy had expected humanity to crumble under the first serious assault. Instead, they had witnessed something that defied their understanding of how war worked. The humans had not just defeated the Void Hunters. They had made it look easy, but the ultimate warriors were only beginning to reveal their true capabilities. The galaxy thought it had seen the worst humanity could offer. In reality, they had barely scratched the surface of what Earth's enhanced defenders could become. The real war was just starting. The transport ship cut through space toward Earth. Inside, Taemin stared out at the stars while Yuna worked at her datapad. She had been analyzing the alien representatives for hours, building psychological profiles that would help Earth prepare for what was coming. They meant every word, she said without looking up. The Void Hunters see us as prey that got too bold. The Plasma Collective thinks we're chaos that needs to be organized. The ancient synthesis views us as a problem to be solved. Taemin nodded. And Vextar? Scared. Terrified, actually. He's seen what happens when the old order changes. His species has held power for 3,000 years by never allowing anyone to challenge them. Then they'll come for us. Oh yes. The only question is who strikes first and how hard. Their ship approached Earth through the standard shipping lanes. To any watching eyes, it looked like a simple diplomatic vessel returning from routine negotiations. The casual observer would see nothing unusual about their landing at the public spaceport outside Seoul. But instead of heading to government buildings or military headquarters, Taemin and Yuna took a private transport to the mountains. Their destination was not marked on any map. The facility they entered did not officially exist. Director Wanho waited for them in a room carved from solid rock. He was a thin man with gray hair and calm eyes, but something about his presence made the air feel heavy. When he spoke, it was with the quiet authority of someone who had shaped the fate of worlds. How did they react? He asked. Exactly as we expected, Yuna replied. She activated a holographic display showing the alien fleet composition she had observed. They're powerful, but their tactics haven't changed in centuries. They rely on overwhelming force and technological superiority. Wanho studied the data. Show me their weaknesses. Yuna highlighted different sections of the display. The Void Hunters use biological ships that need to feed. Cut off their food supply and they become vulnerable. The Plasma Collective shares a network consciousness. Disrupt that connection and they lose coordination. The ancient synthesis draws power from quantum fields that can be interfered with. And their greatest weakness? Taemin answered this time. They think they know what humanity is capable of. Wanho smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Then it's time they learned the truth. Activate Protocol 7. The message went out across human space through channels that existed in the shadows between official communications. To most humans, life continued normally. Farmers tended their crops. Merchants flew their trade routes. Teachers educated their students. But for a select few, everything changed. On the agricultural world of Kepler 438b, Ji-hoon received the signal while working in his fields. To his neighbors, he was just another farmer who had come to make a new life among the stars. They knew he kept to himself and worked harder than most, but nothing more. They had no idea that beneath his simple clothes, Ji-hoon's body had been rebuilt from the ground up. His bones were reinforced with materials stronger than steel. His muscles had been enhanced to provide strength and speed far beyond human norms. His nervous system had been upgraded to process information faster than any computer. Most importantly, his mind had been linked to a quantum network that connected him to every other ultimate warrior in human space. When Protocol 7 activated, Ji-hoon felt the awakening of hundreds of others like him. The farmer facade fell away like old clothing. In another part of the galaxy, cargo pilot Hyojin felt the same signal reach her ship. She had been flying trade routes for 5 years, building a reputation as a reliable carrier who always delivered on time. Her cargo ship looked ordinary from the outside, designed to blend in with thousands of others. But when the signal came, hidden panels slid open throughout the vessel. Weapon systems that existed in quantum storage materialized in seconds. The ship's hull reconfigured itself, revealing armor plating and energy shields that made it stronger than most military dreadnoughts. Hyajin's own transformation was less visible, but no less dramatic. Neural implants activated, connecting her directly to the ship's systems. Her reflexes accelerated to superhuman levels. Her tactical awareness expanded to encompass entire star systems. The simple cargo pilot became something far more dangerous. On the education world of Proxima Centauri, teacher Dongwu was in the middle of a lesson about galactic history when the signal reached him. His students, a mix of human and alien children, watched as their mild-mannered instructor paused mid-sentence. When Dongwu continued speaking, his voice carried new authority. Class dismissed. Return to your homes and wait for further instructions. The children obeyed without question, sensing the change in their teacher. As soon as they were gone, Dongwu activated communication systems hidden throughout the classroom. His real identity emerged like a butterfly from a cocoon. He was not just a teacher. He was a strategic mastermind who had spent years building a network of operatives across dozens of worlds. His students were not random children, but carefully selected individuals whose families held key positions in alien governments and militaries. Every lesson had been designed to gather intelligence and place assets where they would be most useful. Similar scenes played out across human space. The librarian on Tau Ceti revealed herself as a master hacker who could crack any alien computer system. The mining foreman on Gliese 6067C activated seismic charges that had been placed years earlier, ready to reshape entire continents if needed. The medical researcher on Wolf 359 began synthesizing biological weapons tailored to specific alien physiologies. These were Earth's ultimate warriors. They were not soldiers in any traditional sense. They were living weapons, each one capable of changing the course of an entire war. More than that, they were the next step in human evolution, enhanced and augmented to push the very limits of what sapient life could achieve. Back on Earth, Wonho watched status reports flood in from across the galaxy. Each activation created a new node in humanity's hidden network. What the aliens had seen as scattered human colonies were actually pieces of a vast military machine that had been decades in the making. How many are active? He asked his aide. 47 Ultimate Warriors have confirmed activation. 12 deep cover networks are operational. 6 strategic assets are ready for deployment. Yuna looked up from her analysis station. The aliens still think they're dealing with normal humans. They have no idea what's coming. Wonho nodded. Let them maintain that illusion as long as possible. When they discover the truth, it should be too late for them to adapt. Taemin studied the tactical displays showing human and alien positions throughout the galaxy. The Void Hunters will strike first. They always do. They'll target what looks like our weakest colony. Then Ji-hoon will have his chance to show them what humanity really looks like when it stops. Pretending to be harmless, the command center fell quiet as they watched the alien fleets begin to move. For 50 years, humanity had played the role of eager newcomers, grateful for any scraps of acceptance from the established powers. They had endured insults and restrictions, always appearing to bend rather than break, but that performance was ending. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not its technology or its numbers, but its infinite capacity for adaptation, and the Ultimate Warriors were the ultimate expression of that adaptation. The first battle would begin soon, and when it did, the galaxy would learn that Earth had never been as helpless as it seemed. The massive space station floated in the void like a crystal mountain. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports. Inside the main chamber, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered for an emergency meeting. The air buzzed with nervous energy and alien languages. Ambassador Vextar stood at the center podium. His crystalline body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ancient authority. Fellow beings of the Galactic Council, we face a crisis unlike any in our history. The chamber fell silent. Even the massive Void Hunters stopped their clicking conversations. The energy beings of the Plasma Collective dimmed their glow to show respect. In the back rows, the ancient synthesis representatives watched with eyes that had seen the birth of stars. Humanity, Vextar continued, has become a problem we can no longer ignore. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. For 50 years, humans had been expanding across the galaxy. At first, the older races had found them amusing. These young creatures with their short lives and loud voices seemed harmless enough. They traded fairly and mostly kept to themselves. But then reports started coming in. Human colonies that refused to follow galactic law. Human merchants who somehow always got the better deal. Human explorers who went places no sane being would dare to go. And worst of all, humans who looked at the established order of things and simply said no. "They do not respect our authority," said Nest Mother Zexara of the Void Hunters. Her bioship pulsed behind her like a living mountain. "They treat our laws as suggestions. They act as if they belong here. But they do belong here," said a calm voice from the entrance. Every head turned. Commander Taman walked into the chamber with steady steps. Behind him came Dr. Yuna, her dark eyes taking in every detail of the alien assembly. They wore simple uniforms, but something about them made the aliens uneasy. "You were not invited to speak," Vextar said coldly. Taman smiled. It was not a threatening expression, but several aliens shifted nervously. "We heard you were discussing us." It seemed polite to attend, polite. The prime fusion of the plasma collective flared brighter. "Your species knows nothing of politeness. You take what you want and ignore what you are told." Yuna stepped forward. She had spent years studying alien psychology, learning how different species thought and felt. She knew exactly which words would cut deepest. "We take nothing that is not freely given. We ignore only those orders that make no sense." The chamber erupted in angry voices. How dare these humans speak so boldly? Did they not understand their place in the galaxy? The older races had ruled here for thousands of years before humanity even learned to make fire. Vextar raised his crystal arms for silence. "This is precisely the problem. You do not understand your position. You are newcomers here, children playing with forces beyond your comprehension." "Perhaps," Taman said quietly, "but we are fast learners." The first thought of the ancient synthesis spoke for the first time. Its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We have watched species rise and fall for eons. We have seen the patterns. Aggressive young races always burn themselves out or must be contained." "Contained?" Yuna asked. "Controlled, managed, kept within proper boundaries." The first thought's words carried the certainty of geological time. "It is for the good of all." Taman looked around the chamber. He saw fear in many faces, anger in others. These beings had ruled the galaxy for so long that they could not imagine anything different. They saw humanity's independence as a disease that might spread to other species. "Let me understand," he said slowly. "You want us to stop expanding, stop exploring, stop trading on our own terms. You want us to ask permission before we do anything in our own space." "Exactly," Vextar said with satisfaction. "Submit to galactic oversight. Accept guidance from your betters. Learn your place in the cosmic order." The chamber fell silent again. This was the moment of truth. Would humanity bow to the assembled might of the galaxy? Would they accept their role as junior partners in an ancient system? Taman looked at Yuna. She gave the smallest nod. They had discussed this possibility many times during their long journey to the station. Earth's leadership had been very clear about how to respond. "No," Taman said simply. The word hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several aliens actually stepped backward. The Void Hunters began their war clicking. The plasma collective flared with angry light. "You refuse?" Vextar's voice cracked like breaking crystal. "Do you understand what you are saying? Do you comprehend the forces arrayed against you?" Taman stood straighter. When he spoke, his voice carried across the vast chamber without effort. "We came here hoping for friendship. We wanted to learn from you, to share what we know, to build something better together." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But Earth has never bowed to ultimatums. We have never accepted that might makes right. And we will not start now." Yuna stepped beside him. "We hoped you would choose cooperation over domination. We hoped you had learned from your long history that forced submission breeds only resentment and rebellion. But if you choose conflict instead," Taman continued, "then you will discover something important about humanity. We may be young by your standards. We may seem small and weak compared to your great civilizations." He smiled again, and this time even the ancient synthesis leaned forward to listen. "But we are very hard to kill." The two humans turned and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. As they reached the doorway, Taemin stopped and looked back. "The galaxy is big enough for all of us," he said. "But if you insist on making it smaller, remember this moment. Remember that you had a choice." They left the chamber behind, heading for their ship and the long journey back to Earth. Behind them, the greatest powers in the galaxy began planning for war. They were confident in their strength, certain of their victory. None of them knew that Earth had been preparing for this moment since humanity first looked up at the stars. None of them suspected that the mild-mannered commander and scientists they had just dismissed were barely scratching the surface of what humans could become. The galaxy was about to learn that it had been living in peace for so long that it had forgotten what war really looked like. And deep in the hidden places of human space, Earth's ultimate warriors were awakening from their long sleep. The real test was about to begin.